What's up, PGF Nation? We are back. NFL Week 5, college football Week 6 in the books. Is James Franklin done at Penn State? Texas gets upset. Drake Maye has a national breakout game. Bucs Seahawks deliver maybe the game of the year. Broncos pull off a big comeback win, and a lot more to get to. Plus, we're going to hand out this week's NFL game balls and college football helmet stickers. Once again, I'm your host, Brad Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Alex Higdon. Alex, let's kick this off. Look, Monday Night Football just wrapped. Jags, Chiefs. Man, this turned out to be, I just said Bucs Seahawks might have been the game of the year. This is right up there with it. This was an unbelievable game, back and forth thriller. Jags, look, this is a statement win for them. This is a big win for Liam Cohen and this Jags team, who's really trying to solidify themselves as one of the better teams in the AFC. This was a huge win.
I picked them to go to the playoffs, so this is kind of right in line. I needed a team that would surprise, and I thought they'd be the team that surprised. Well, shout out to Trevor Lawrence, because I was kind of killing him throughout this game in terms of his awareness, not necessarily his ability, his awareness with the time clock, with the pocket awareness, collapsing of the pocket, and just not moving, speeding things up in your fifth year. You should be at a different speed than where you are in year one. And he just kind of looked out of sorts that, Brad, the end of that half, that was just, Troy Aikman said it perfectly. He said, it looked like there was a lot of movement all for nothing because they didn't do anything at the end of the half. But, shout out to them. Shout out to the defense, obviously Devin Lloyd, but with the return, but the defense and then Trevor Lawrence at the end showed up.
If you're a Jaguars fan, it's almost got to be frustrating at times because the talent is so obvious. You see these moments of brilliance where he looks every bit like the prospect that we thought coming out of Clemson. You see these throws, these wow moments that make you go, okay, this is the guy that you signed to a big deal, that you build a franchise around. But then to your point, you see these bonehead plays that just shouldn't be happening in year 5. Like you said, just not knowing situational awareness is so lacking at times. But look, you're right. Hats off, because when Kansas City made that last drive, well, let's rewind. So the Jags kicked the field goal to take the lead. And when they kicked the ball off to Mahomes and the Chiefs, I thought right then and there, I think we all did, like, all right, checkmate. You kicked it back to Mahomes, and Mahomes did exactly what he always does. Look, he might not be as gifted or as talented as Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, but there's no doubt about it. He's the most clutch quarterback since Brady. I mean, this guy just has a clutch gene like nobody else does in this league. And he did exactly what we expected. He turns it on when it matters the most, goes on this incredible drive, touchdown drive, doesn't leave very much time on the clock. And, most of the time in that situation, you're thinking, okay, that was it. Look, this upstart Jags team ran into one of the best teams in the AFC for the last, 5-6 years. This is where it ends for them. And we look at them as, you know what, this is a good story, but it comes to an end here. And that's where I got to give them a ton of credit, because Lawrence answers with his own huge drive to answer late and take the win here. It's pretty incredible stuff by them. Overall, before we shift gears here, this Chiefs team, they still feel way too dependent on Mahomes just scrambling around to make plays. And look, I know he can do it. We all know he's capable of that, but it's too much. There's not enough structure in this offense. There's not enough consistent run game outside of Mahomes' legs for me to really feel comfortable with the offense still. They've gotten a little better now that Worthy's back and some of these pieces, but they still don't look like a consistent, fluid offense that I think we want to see from them if they're going to be back in the mix, so to speak.
The little details, something Parcells always used to talk about, the Harrison Butker kickoff, putting them at the 40 was huge in order for them to be able to score. Because remember, they had to waste the timeout at the end before they let them, because they should have just probably let them score right away and then kept the timeouts, but they didn't. But that kickoff that nobody's going to talk about was the key to allowing them to do that. And, shout out to him. That was a hell of a pass to Brian Thomas on the sideline.
Yeah, he had a few of those tonight. I mean, just unbelievable throws that literally only about 6 or 7 guys in this league can make. And that's what kind of talent this guy has when he's on. But he definitely turned it on when it mattered, no doubt about it. And you're right. That was one of those mistakes that really, really cost them, because especially with these new kickoff rules, if you get yourself a decent return there, you're only, 2 first downs from really being in range. Really good game, and could be a breakout game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And look, I'm going to take a victory lap here real quick, because if you guys who subscribe to the newsletter, I put out my Monday Night Football betting preview. I had Jags plus 3.5. Just saying.
There'll be a lot of that as we continue.
All right. Sunday Night Football was a pretty good game. Man, look, going into this game, I don't think anybody thought it would be this close. Bills were a huge favorite, 11.5 point favorite over the Patriots. And this is another team kind of similar to the Jags, trying to break out as one of these upstart teams in the AFC. And this was a big statement win for Vrabel in this new coaching staff here and this young quarterback, because Drake Maye, I think, had a national breakout party in this game and really showed everybody just how good he's been. If you weren't paying attention, because look, they're not in a lot of these national spotlight games in the last couple of years. A lot of people haven't gotten to see him recently, but he's been quietly playing some really good football. And man, he had a great game and a big upset win here over the Bills on Sunday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the beginning of this game, it was a back and forth of volleyball, because they were just giving the ball back and forth to each other. And, the Vrabel teams, just like the Titans teams that had, tough, stay gritty, just stay on. And as soon as I saw that in the first quarter, I knew, I said, oh, this is I think I think the Bills are in trouble, and just made it a fight all the way through. And those are what Mike Vrabel teams do the best. And one thing I'll say from a fantasy note, Antonio Gibson tore his ACL. He's out for the year, and Patriots fans have been yelling from the rafters for the rookie running back to finally get his chance. With Ramondre Stevenson fumbling again, I think you're going to see the rookie a lot next game. And so pick him up if he's on the wire in your fantasy team.
Yeah, I think you could tell Vrabel's getting frustrated with Ramondre Stevenson and the fumbles, because after that first fumble, he sat him for quite a while there, and we didn't see him again until quite a bit later in the game. So, yeah, that's something to watch from a fantasy note. Look, the one thing that really impressed me about this game, going back to Drake Maye real quick, was just how good he was on time and off script. He was really showing that when he could play on time in the pocket and deliver nice throws, but then when he was forced out of the pocket and make something happen, he showed toughness. I mean, he was getting peppered in the pocket, staring down the barrel, still hitting his spots with accuracy and with timing. I was really impressed by this young guy. And look, I loved this kid coming out of the draft. And I talked about it when we did our draft coverage of this guy. I said, look, he's not going to be ready to be a star right away. He's more of a developmental guy. Some of these other guys that came out in that draft, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Penix, some of those guys had double the amount of starts that Drake Maye had. So I knew Maye would be a little bit more time to let it bake, so to speak. But we're starting to see now in year two where he's starting to really take those next steps. And if you're a Patriots fan, you've got to be so excited about what you're seeing from this kid, because it just does. It feels like a building block game for this Pats team. And when you look at from the Bills standpoint, look, I don't think it's anything to really lose sleep over. It was just a sloppy football game by them. It was kind of out of characteristic for what they've been these last couple of years. This is a team that really takes care of the ball, and it got away from them in this game. I mean, they had the time of possession battle by 9 minutes over the Patriots. So they were moving the ball, controlling the clock, and doing a lot of good things. But those key turnovers and penalties just killed them in this game. And when you do that, you let an underdog stay around in a game like this, and sometimes you get knocked off.
Yep, and just real quick, my game ball goes to Stephon Diggs, returning to Buffalo, going against Buffalo, 12 targets, 10 catches, 146 yards. He did not disappoint.
That's a great choice for the game ball. I'll get to mine here in a minute, because I want to get to Broncos, Eagles, because this is another game that we previewed on the audio podcast. If you guys aren't subscribed over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you do, so you can check those out. Bo Nix looked terrible in the first half. He looked like he was rattled. He was off script, trying to make plays, misthrowing balls. Second half, though, it really started to click. And that pass to Cortland Sutton on 3rd and 15 that led to that eventual game-winning drive was an absolute dime. And I got to give some credit to Sean Payton, because something you talk about a lot with him and his lack of a running game, his lack of a willingness to run the ball. He did something very un-Sean Payton-like and had the perfect game plan here to really control the ball, control the clock. They rushed for 127 yards and really slowed down that Philly pass rush and took pressure off of Bo Nix in this game. The last thing I'll say here, Alex, is Vance Joseph, I think, deserves some credit here too. Because if you watch the adjustments he made in game, because he starts the game playing mostly cover one man, and then they start getting carved up by the Eagles early, and he was smart enough to make a decision in game to switch to more cover two high zone looks and a lot of shell coverage, and that really frustrated Hurts in that passing attack from Philly, and it allowed the Broncos to climb back into this.
Yeah, okay, let's focus on what you just said on the Philly side. The passing attack. 38 pass attempts to 11 rushes and only 6 by Saquon Barkley. Now, we know Saquon Barkley hasn't broken out or had one of those games yet, but still, you only ran the ball a total of 11 times and threw it 38. I don't know what's going on there, but something's going to be brewing because, and let's be fair, let's be clear, that there should have been a bomb, probably about a 60-yard touchdown from Hurts to A.J. Brown, who slowed up on that. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he's going to say, well, we're out of sync. We don't throw the ball enough. I don't know what the excuse was there, but that should have been a touchdown. Nonetheless, another victory lap for PGF.
Yeah, we had Broncos. We took the points in this game, and you actually took Broncos on the money line. I took Broncos plus 4.5 because I thought at the very least they would find a way to make this close. And early on, it didn't look like it was going to be. It looked like the Eagles were going to run away with this. But you're absolutely right. That is not the formula for them. That is the exact opposite of what this Eagles team is. That's going against their identity. But we've talked about it a couple weeks ago, Alex. This Eagles team and I said it on the pod, similar to this Chiefs team. These two Super Bowl teams, they're good, but something doesn't look right. All right, let's shift to Buccaneers, Seahawks. This was an instant classic. And look, tip of the cap to the throwback 76 uniforms, celebrating the 50-year anniversary that these teams entered the NFL together. I thought that was really cool. It was cool to see him out there in the retro unis. Two of the better retro unis out there, too. The creamsicle, the silver Seahawk helmets. That was fun to watch, but the game was even better, man. This was back-to-back late drives that were just unbelievable. Sam Darnold escaping pressure, making plays downfield to get that touchdown lead late, and then Baker matches him, ties it up with a minute left, an absolute shootout, and then Baker, of course, with the late field goal winning drive. Look, I don't want to take anything away from Sam Darnold because he was great in this game. That late pick was a killer. Mm-hmm. Great blitz call by Todd Bowles there. But Baker was just better in these big games. Look, Baker for MVP now?
Hey, listen.
Is that crazy talk?
It's not crazy talk. I've been on board with it the whole time, but I'll get to Baker in a minute. One of the things I want to point out, let's talk about this Ohio State receiver battle that actually happened in the game, which was in an undertone there between Jackson Smith and Jigma, 9 targets for 8 catches, 132 and a touch, and then Emeka Egbuka for 7 targets, 7 catches, 163 and a touch. If there's an argument still out there about wide receiver I respect Chase and Justin Jefferson, but I think Ohio State has clipped them. But it was a great wide receiver battle as well. But to your point to Baker and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, grit, and I talk about it, grit, toughness, and they will go as far as Baker is going to lead them. This guy he wears his heart on his sleeve. These guys will fight and continue to fight for him as long as he's on the field. You can talk about it how you want to talk about it, but they're a dark horse Super Bowl team, and Baker definitely should be mentioned in MVP conversations. If and just a quick note, follow us on Facebook too. PGF Nation is on Facebook too. A lot of these takes we actually have on the Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The way he has played really the last couple years in Tampa, but right now it feels like we're seeing Baker take his game to a whole nother level, because there's been how many games so far this year late in the game when he had to put the cape on and he delivers in these big spots, making big time clutch throws in big situations to drive them into game winning situations. It feels like every week he has been unbelievable. And look, I'm just going to take the L. I know it's early in the year. I'm taking the L on Sam Darnold because I don't think either one of us really believed in Seattle this year. And I think we just might have missed on this one, Alex, because this team is tough. They're a tough out. I think Mike McDonald has that defense playing tough. They have an identity. And I thought Sam Darnold was going to kind of turn back into a pumpkin when he got to Seattle. I didn't think the weapons, the lack of a Kevin O'Connell offense and all the things he had in Minnesota, I just wasn't sure it was going to carry over to this year. I thought we'd see him take a step back. He really is playing at a high level still. And I got to give him a lot of credit. And on a side note here, I think Minnesota has got to be looking at this thinking that they might have made a huge mistake moving off of Darnold. But the Vikings, they're good, but they're not nearly as good as they were last year with him. And JJ hasn't been healthy or shown us anything when he did play. So I think there's something to be said about this.
Yeah, you know what? And I'll say real quick, Minnesota, we know that they wanted to keep them. The price was just too rich, so I can understand that there. But the other thing is that Seattle did, Mike McDonald did, that was smart. bringing in Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator, a guy that was in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell and then went back to San Francisco as the passing game coordinator, now bringing him in to be the offensive coordinator. So it's a familiar system to the point that you were talking about. It's a familiar system to him. So as opposed to him being a pumpkin, they put him in the same system. So there was a modicum of success that was expected when he got there.
You're right about that. It was a smart move for sure. He looks good. He's playing with a lot of confidence right now, and the Seattle team's playing like a team that could be in the playoffs for sure. And this weekend, watching these two guys who came out in the same draft class, two of the top picks in that class, really got me thinking, Alex, we just have no patience with quarterbacks anymore. You look at Darnold, you look at Baker, and you look at Daniel Jones with the Colts. Heck, even Mac Jones has looked pretty good. I know it's a backup role, but he's came in and looked pretty good with the 49ers. And it just goes to show you, it got me thinking, we give up on these quarterbacks so fast, and we don't give these guys time to really bake and develop and become the players that we thought that they could be when they were taken in the top 5 picks, right? Like, these guys were all taken in the first round for a reason. It's because people saw something. We saw the talent. We saw guys that we thought could be franchise quarterbacks. And now you look at these guys and they're developed. You get the right pieces around them. You get a good system that fits their skill set. You get some pieces, some better offensive line plays, some guys to throw to, and all of a sudden, what do you know? These guys look really good. So it's just something that really got me thinking about this and how I think we need to learn to have more patience when we're drafting these quarterbacks and letting them develop a little bit.
Yeah. And before we move on, just really quick, we're not going to talk about this game, but you mentioned Mac Jones. That was also a hell of a win by the 49ers on Thursday night over the Rams.
Impressive, gutsy win. A team that's coming in really limped into that game. So many guys are hurt for them. Obviously, like we mentioned, you got a backup quarterback. You've got all kinds of starters that are out, and they're a big dog to come in there and get a win against a good division rival. You're absolutely right about that, Alex. That was a really, really gritty performance.
Is there a quarterback controversy in San Francisco?
I don't think so. I think they paid Purdy for a reason, because they believe in this guy, and I think he has enough of a proven track record with them that they know what he is. They know he can play in big games. They know he delivers more often than not, right? And I think what Mac Jones has done, though, is given them a really solid backup option, which is always a good thing in the NFL, because we know these very rarely do any of these starters make it through 17 games. So having a backup might be one of the most underrated positions in football. But what it has done for Mac Jones specifically is it's gotten him another shot, because I'll be shocked if he doesn't get a starting job next year somewhere after what we've seen from him. So
that's a fact.
Yeah, definitely. He's putting some good game tape out there, as they say. Before we shift to the college slate, I got to give out my NFL Week 5 game ball, a game that we didn't talk about, but I was impressed with the Detroit Lions, and it's going to defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Man, this guy is a wrecking ball. What a player he's become. 4 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 sack, 5 quarterback hits. I mean, he lived in the backfield in this game, was so disruptive, such a good player. He's getting the game ball for me, Alex. All right, let's shift gears to Upset Saturday. Man, did we see some big games and some big teams go down and really shake up the CFP landscape on Saturday. Let's start out in LA, out in Westwood. This is not a game that I thought we would be talking about, Alex. Let's just be honest. This was a team in Penn State going up against UCLA that was a very under-the-radar game, because Penn State came in as a huge, I believe it was 24.5-point favorite going into this game against winless UCLA. And look, if we rewind a little bit, we talked about last week, Penn State had the huge national spotlight game against Oregon, top 10 matchup, down to the wire, great finish. And it looks to me, Alex, like Oregon just beat Penn State 2 weeks in a row, because you want to talk about a letdown game after a big loss. You go up against a UCLA team that was 134th ranked defense in the country, 0-4, fired their coach midseason, and they put up 435 yards and 42 points on Penn State.
Yeah. So listen, you let Nico, a guy who ran away from big time football in Tennessee, put up 5 touchdowns on you by himself. He shout out to the offensive line, but by himself, 2 passing, 3 rushing. He might have even played himself back into people talking about him coming out in the draft. I don't know, but James Franklin and Drew Allar, I don't know what's going on there. There has to be some accountability that when you face these teams, you're supposed to punish these teams. It's okay you play down to a team, but you don't lose to this team if you're talking about this is your what probably your best chance in the national and excuse me to win the national title. You don't lose games like this. You're supposed to be creme de la creme. You're supposed to be a top 5 program, and you're not looking. You're looking like fool's gold. So I'm sorry, it's over for Penn State.
No, you're not kidding here because look, it's one thing to lose to Oregon. And even though that was a gut punch, because like you said, this was a team that was trying to get over the hump and get into that national title conversation. That's a tough loss. But look, there's no shame in losing to another top 10 team. There is shame in losing to UCLA. This team is terrible. To put this loss in perspective, UCLA became the first 0-4 team to beat a top 10 team since 1985. I mean, you just don't see games like this. That's how rare this is. And to your point, Alex, this was a now or never year for Penn State. They had the preseason Heisman favorite at quarterback, 2 top 5 running backs who are projected to go in the NFL. They had the best offensive line in college football, the best portal class. They brought in Jim Knowles from Ohio State to be the defensive coordinator, and they went from number 2 in the country to start the year to unranked in 5 weeks. You want to talk about a team completely coming unraveled. I think you're right. I don't think you can recover from this. I really don't. I don't care if they win the rest of their games. I don't think they recover. I think James Franklin gets fired at the end of the year because I think Penn State realizes they have to shift gears. There's no excuses for this team.
Yeah, and Iowa's not ranked, but they're tough. Then they have this is back-to-back games. Then they have Ohio State, and then they have the emerging Indiana. So I think they can lose another 2 to 3 games before the end of the season. So it's sorry. What's my favorite saying that I hear everybody? Sorry, not sorry. It's over at Penn State. Good luck.
Is it over in Texas is the next question. Because, look, this is another team kind of similar to Penn State. Look, they came in preseason number 1. This is the team people thought was going to run the table, win the SEC, win the national title. Arch was going to be carried off on shoulders with the Heisman Trophy in his hand. What happened to all that? Because Texas has been a major disappointment. I mean, maybe not to the same level of Penn State, granted, but it's not looking good for them either. I mean, this offensive line is a mess. They can't run the ball. They put way too much on Arch Manning to carry this team. And look, I'll be fair, he's been a C+ quarterback, not the A++ hype that we expected, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say he's been trash, but he hasn't been the guy that we thought he'd be right out the gate. We thought he was going to be some combination of, Peyton Manning with wheels. I don't know what people expected, but obviously the hype got too far. And I'm pointing the finger myself here. I kind of bought into it. I saw flashes of it last year and thought that there could be a special year for them, but he's not ready for this level of football yet. And the defense completely no-showed in this game. They've been a great defense all year. Where was the defense in this game, Alex? This Florida offense really, do I say mediocre or just bad? Am I being nice by saying mediocre? I mean, it hasn't been a very good offense. Yeah, and Florida lit them up like a Christmas tree. Look, Texas is in major trouble here because they've got Oklahoma next week. Oklahoma looks like they're for real. Florida's ability to run the ball, I thought, was key in this game. They ran all over them, 100 yards in the first half. Every time Texas scored, DJ Lagway in Florida responded. Their defense could not get a stop in this game. I know you're a Gator fan, so tell me about it, Alex. What do you think?
So, listen. Well, first off, my helmet sticker is going to the defensive group. A couple of things. Our offense has looked anemic over since the beginning of the season. However, that defense has been the same throughout, with 26 in the nation, at least in 26 in the nation, and points allowed at 17. So another pat on the back for PGF Nation, because we said Florida over Texas. Well, at least take Florida in the points over Texas, and once again, we hit. Donations are accepted. So that's the first thing that I'll say. The second thing I'll say is shout out to our guy B Rob. I said last year that they should have let Quinn Ewers go, and they should have started Arch Manning behind the better offensive line and better team that Texas was last year, because he wouldn't be having these growing pains now with these younger guys this year. And then obviously next year we're hoping that he more than likely takes the leap that everyone is expecting. So Sarkisian in Texas, you're in this mess because of yourself. Because you did not want to let go of Quinn Ewers and tell him to transfer or go to the league. You're in this mess because of yourself. This was bad organizational handling of this entire situation.
Yeah, I think sometimes taking time to develop, taking time to be the backup and develop, I think sometimes that can be really important. But there's also something to be said about just getting snaps and reps and seeing live defenses and getting big game experience in a conference like the SEC. I think you're absolutely right. I think they would be a year further ahead right now had he been the starter. Now, would they have been in the national title hunt? Maybe not, but they might be in the national title hunt right now if he's a year
Exactly.
further ahead. So there's definitely something to be said about that, Alex. Now, the last game I want to get to here, that big top 25 matchup, Miami, Florida State. As of right now, Miami, look, they might be the best team in college football. I know Ohio State's number one, but this team has been dominant on the line of scrimmage. It's something we talked about in the preseason going into the year. I said, circle the line of scrimmage for Miami because they are going to be really good on both sides of the ball. They've been dominating teams. This team is a bully. Now, look, I know it's early, but right now, Reuben Bain Jr. is number one player on my big board.
Yeah. I just spoke about Florida and the Gators and their defense at 26. Well, Miami is 15th, only allowing 13. This is, and obviously this is not shades of the, of the U back with the Ed Reed U when they were just shutting everybody down. But however, only allowing 13 points, and listen, have defense will travel. And if you have something like that, you're going to be able to take that wherever it is that you go and know that you have a chance because the defense is going to show up there. However, Florida State, a lot of my family loves Florida State. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I got to give Florida State some credit though, because they made this game interesting. Look, this wasn't a perfect performance overall by Miami. And like I said, it got interesting. They kind of let Florida State back into this game late and had to kind of sweat out a win there. But there was a stretch in the third quarter when Miami just looked like an elite championship level football team. When everything is clicking for this team and they're playing what might be their best ball, so to speak, they look really, really tough. They can run the ball. They can stop the run. And Carson Beck, man, big scoring plays from this guy, big throws from this guy once again in this game. What a comeback story that this guy is writing right now, because I think a lot of us wrote this guy off. I know when Miami paid, I think I've seen reports for some huge numbers in the millions of dollars, and I don't know the exact number, but they paid a lot of money to get Carson Beck to come start at Miami. And at the time, I laughed thinking, why are they paying Carson Beck this kind of money? Well, he's proving me wrong right now because he looks like the real deal. He looks like the guy we saw at Georgia 2 years ago, not the guy we saw last year. And shout out real quick to freshman receiver Malachi Toney. Oh my goodness, this guy has been incredible for them. What a player he is, the true freshman. But yeah, Miami's a bully, man, and they're going to be tough. And as long as Mario Cristobal doesn't get in their way, so to speak, they're going to be a really tough out. And I think right now they've got to be the heavy favorite in the ACC, but I also think they're a team that could be taking the 1 seed in the CFP if things keep going their way.
Hey, listen, I think if Miami stays on track the way that they are right now, I think they're going to be able to go deep in the playoffs as long as that defense everybody stays healthy, specifically that defense. I think they're going to have a chance to really make a run. And boy, if the U is back on top, look out.
We know that they've kind of been a sleeping giant in college football for a while now, and it looks like Mario Cristobal has woken this giant up because they are playing like an elite program once again for the first time in a really long time. Now, before we get out of here, there was a game in the ACC that we didn't get a chance to really talk about, but I don't even want to talk about the game really because I didn't think the game was really worth talking about. But let's be real for a second, because this is kind of the harsh truth. If Bill Belichick was still that guy, he'd be coaching in the NFL. And when I watch North Carolina and their struggles, and they are really, really struggling. This is not even a competitive football team right now. Through the first 5 weeks of his college football debut, it's made one thing very clear to me, Alex. The college game might be too much for him. And just like his NFL success slipped away once Tom Brady was no longer his quarterback, it looks like football in general is slipping away from Bill Belichick. And I think his stock right now is at an all-time low.
Yeah, I actually absolutely agree. I mean, he's too busy. It feels too busy playing petty wars. Do you know that the UNC, they celebrated Javonte Williams and a lot of things that he did? It wasn't until yesterday that they had posted about Drake Maye because of the quote unquote ban that Bill Belichick has about the Patriots, that they were not even talking about their first round quarterback pick. And yesterday they actually tweeted about him for the first time since May. So I think there's too many petty games. I think there's a lot of things that they need to be paid attention to in terms of detail. This guy, we could say anything we want to say about him, Brad. You're absolutely right, but there's a lot when it comes to details, and this team looks like they have not been paying attention to any details.
And it's funny you say that because for years, what did we always read and hear from players, coaches, beat reporters, anybody that was involved or close to this team? And I mean the Patriots, when he was there, what did we always hear? How buttoned up they were, how detail oriented they were. Yet we see a huge lack of details, a huge lack of focus from him in this program. I think you're absolutely right. It's a mess right now. It has gone off the rails way faster than I ever could have imagined. And he's got to figure it out because, like I said, this stock is at an all-time low. If he wants to get that phone to ring again with NFL names on it, he's going to have to really start turning things around because his image is in the dirt right now. Before we get out of here, I forgot, Alex, I got to give out my college football week 6 helmet sticker. I love your pick going to the Florida defense, man. I love that. The group sticker, always a good one. They deserve it after that win for sure. I'm giving mine out on the defensive side as well. A game we didn't talk about, but a game we did preview. Alabama linebacker Justin Jefferson, 14 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss in a big win over Vanderbilt. They get their revenge game from the loss to Vanderbilt last year. So hats off to him. This guy was flying around. It felt like he was in on every play. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Follow us on Twitter and social media because you can get exclusive content, all the different stuff we're doing, because it's a lot more than just this podcast, the audio podcast, the newsletter, the website. Go check it out, guys. Once again, I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.